and welcome to my another Infinity Battle report. This one will be the last before I start uploading videos from the French tournament, team tournament Beaujolais that I was attending this weekend. So there will be a change of pace where I will be able to finally show you some of my miniatures in action on the battlefields. This round I'm going to show you was played on the TRbot League, which is, as I remind you, a Russian TTS league. And again, for round 2 I was paired against vYJ with my Svalheim Winterfalls. I decided for a change of pace to play a different list than I've played before, and again I got really lucky with resilience operation cards where I got basically hold my objectives, hold enemy quadrant and my quadrant, and then finally hold supplies. And all of those missions basically meant that as long as I was having full strength at the last turn and I had big enough pieces, like expensive enough pieces, I could pretty much score the zones and win from the get-go. So this is like one of the reasons why I would go with my list. So I'm going to show you my list now, and then I'm going to go through my opponent's list. So at this time we're basically creating a Jotun list, and the reason for that, as I mentioned, is that we really need some big piece to put into the quadrants and the middle table. So basically it will be very difficult for our opponent to outpoint. The fact that Yodam is really expensive for attack plays in our favor this time, because we have to put as many points as possible. Moreover, I thought to myself, like, what exactly Vanilla Yujing is supposed to do against Arm 10? Well, they don't really run any APs in the list. Usually the meta is to run Haktao, Sujan, Luna, and none of those pieces are particularly great against Yodam, so I figured that Yodam will not only be able to score me objectives, but it will also keep me safe. Once we take the Yodam in our list, it's quite obvious that we need an engineer. Not only Yodam has tendency to die, even as having arm 10, but he can also be hacked, so we want to avoid this as much as possible. Because we have an engineer and Svalheim is not really known for its survivability, we're taking a Sierra Dronebot. Sierra Dronebot is basically a disposable reactive piece that you hope you don't lose in the first shootout it happens, and it might, on the off chance, it might actually kill something. We have to take a Kahu with a Feuerbach, because why else will we play Svalheim, and it's quite easy to fill it up with the Fusiliers. This is a very good Harris, and I suggest you should always try to take it in Svalheim, at least one of them. Then we have to take the Liankai, because generally the Svalheim without Liankai is quite tough. You don't really have anything to close combat your opponents with. And then from the get-go we have to make a Fusilier fighting, because who else doesn't love Fusiliers? We're taking a missile launcher, and because I had spare SWC and spare points, I upgraded this Fusilier to a hacker. There is no particular reason other than I had some points spare, and basically why not take a hacker, it might prove useful. Then to round up the list we have double flashbots, nothing else to talk about, just regular orders there. And finally the Beast Hunter with the heavy flamethrower, just as an additional piece that can do exactly what Liang Kai is doing most of the time. And my opponent is running Vanilla Ujing, and from my memory this is the list he was running. Definitely he had the Xian MSV2, then he had the Ruishi plus the Evo Hacker package, and then to supplement it he's taking one monk and then the other monk to do some smoke tricks. From what I've talked to my opponent, the idea behind this list was to fight against mimetism heavy opponents, which kinda eludes me why he would choose this list against Valheim. But the fact is he wanted to try, and the tournament is running resilience operations, so why not try it now if you have to. Then obviously there's Celestial Guard plus Quangshi package. Usually you run 4 Quangshis, but in this particular example my opponent decided to go for Shaolin Monk instead of the Quangshi. Then finally Sujan makes his appearance, because he's a really great piece for Yujing, and why would he not take Sujan? Obviously Longyas, because Longyas are great. And finally Dowing Lieutenant. Well, basically even without NCO this is still a camo marker lieutenant that costs 22 points, and I myself take Zulu Cobras from time to time because it's a camo lieutenant invulnerable to guided, and it basically is more expensive than this 22 point model. In a pinch it can boarding shotgun somebody if you really have to. Then finally the only specialist in the practical terms is Zencha for Observer. I'm not really sure. I'm not really a Zencha guy, so I won't really either defend it or attack this piece. It's just a Zencha of one observer in the midfield. And then finally there's a Hundun heavy rocket launcher. Hunduns generally, you love them or you hate them. There's pretty much no between. And I'm picking from perspective of vanilla or white banner player. I myself very rarely like Hunduns because I think heavy rocket launcher just doesn't do it damage wise. But some people really like the thrill of splashing a fire team with a rocket, and I can understand that. Then basically we're going to get to the Eugene deployment, because I don't remember exactly whether I won the lieutenant role or my opponent did, but what ended up happening was I chose the what I thought was side that I could put objectives better, because remember I have to defend my objectives, and I gave the other side to my opponent. From basically things that could be of interest of you, this is Evil Hacker and this is the Rushi. And then finally here is the Xian and here is the aforementioned Ruishi, right? So the Ruishi is basically taking this half of the table, which is more close combat approach, basically. Like, it's more likely to be in 24 inches than Xian, which can very much dominate this long fire lanes with his HMG. Then of course he has a monk here and monk here to basically create the opportunity for smoke shooting. There's Zencha here located, and from his reserve drop there was a Sujan here. Again, it's much more likely for the Sujan to run here to my deployment zone than it would be for, like, for example, this area, because it's quite open. And finally the Dowing Lieutenant is located here, and again, because this is a Camel Lieutenant, it's pretty much impossible to dig out in this particular example, because Guangxi 1, Guangxi 2, there's the Longia and there's a mine. Like, there's no way in hell I'm just basically going to kill this Dowing. Not basically when he has no NCO, the more likely for me it is to not kill it, basically. I deployed second with all of my stuff here, and basically I started with the fire team Fusiliers here. This missile launcher has really long angles to watch here. We decided that there's basically no line here because there were like small gaps here, and we decided not to shoot through them. So this Fusilier is pretty much contesting this area. And this area in particular, I think, I'm pretty much sure it's outside of 32 inches, meaning that any gunfight Xian is likely to take will be either from this position or this position if he wants to maintain cover. And both of those are outside of the good range for the Xian, meaning that it's very tough to fight to pick up, right? But Xian can also go this way and force a good fight from this engagement, so that's why we have Yodum put here. Yodum is my reserve piece, but generally speaking Yodum is put here to prevent this from happening. So if my opponent wants to take the fight with Fusilier, he's more than welcome to, but if he wants to take a fight in good range, then he has to go through Yodum. Again, Yodum is also covering this angle, basically serving as an impenetrable wall to my defenses. This is an anchor that I'm going to build my entire deployment around. The Feuerbach is located here, and the reasoning for that is that I can really use this and these pieces that use climbing plus, and basically abuse the climbing plus to maybe like find an angle on the Evo hacker, on or like Longias or other pieces that I can hunt. Lianka is hiding here in the wreckage, basically so he can move either this way or that way and supplement my attack. Total reaction is located here in a very awkward spot, but I don't have anywhere else to put him, so here he goes. There's the engineer and there's the Palbot, basically to supplement our defense. Finally, one more thing to point out is that this Fusilier hacker has somewhat an okay bubble around him that he can hack with, and then the Beast Hunter is there to protect me from any Sujans. Then again, this flash pulse protects this area, and like this flash pulse protects this area. So this is making it very awkward for the Zencha or the Sujan to come into my deployment. And this is basically how we can elevate this poor little Fusilier hacker in this particular list example. So my opponent goes first, and what he ends up doing is he decides to first open up with Xian, that's located here. He throws a smoke, tries to smoke shoot the Yodum, but he quickly realized that this is not exactly a good fight to take, so he just basically goes back and not takes the fight. Then Ruishi kicks in the gear, uses smoke to kill this Sierra Total reaction, and then tries to go after this Fugazi, but basically I crit dodge or something else happens. With no orders for Ruishi to spend, with the last order Ruishi has, she goes into suppressive, and Sujan uses the orders from group 2 to basically run across here, try to force the issue. I shoot with the Yotum, and this flash pulse ends up flash pulsing the Sujan, so this basically stops the attack run. I think my opponent really was bamboozled by this Yodom in this position, because as again, without any AP tools in the Ujink list, he doesn't really have a good way to go through the Yodom, and my Yodom basically dominates the table and makes every approach very inefficient. What I would do in my opponent's shoes, without knowing his objectives, I would try to get as many objective cards as possible, and maybe try to force the issue with Longia. It's still a burst to Panzerfaust. I know that it's rather risky, but you still apply the surprise shot. So if you really want to take an Yodum, I'd rather take it with the Longias. Then it's time for my turn. First, I try to basically remove the Ruishi. I shoot here with the Yodum. It takes one order. Ruishi goes down. Karhu then tries to face the Sujan and basically kill him. The reasoning why would you use the Karhu instead of Yodom is that Karhu is more likely to one-shot the Sujan than the Yodom, and I don't really want the cat to go prone, and also free NC order. Unfortunately, Sujan beats me with a dodge, and I have to use the Ankai. I Berserk, I take a wound, he takes a wound, then I basically finish it off with some good old fashioned close combat attack. Then I have some other orders to spare, so like this Yodom basically makes the approach here. Discover shoots this Longia off, and then Discover shoots this Longia off, if I remember correctly. I'm not sure whether my opponent revealed or no, but basically this is the end outcome, right? So after that, what ends up happening is that this fire team basically moves up close and doesn't really go anywhere and hides around these objectives to basically grab them for future reference. So after that, it's my opponent's go, and what my opponent basically does is he uses smoke to cover the Xian. And again, the Yodam is, after running this right, the Yodam is moved to a position where it's slightly off because I didn't have enough orders to put him here. So he's no longer watching this fire lane, right? So there is no line of fire here, and my opponent is clear to engage my pieces. Xian takes a fight in the outside of 32 range against the Fusilier. I'm on 15s, he's on 8s. He crits the Fusilier down because why wouldn't he? And after that, Xian spends like entirety turn running across here, tanking 3 or 4 heavy flamethrowers from this guy, basically walking all around my Fusilier repeater area, which is like that. And he basically removes this HVT for a card and just goes back to his hiding place. So rather crazy turn, that the fact that he basically survived like 3 heavy flamethrower hits is like nice, but he also removed the Fusilier out of the equation, so double nice, I guess. Then it's my turn to go, and basically there's not much to talk about. The Karhu from here moves basically all the way here. Then I discover shoot the Zencha off with like 1 or 2 others, and I basically just go back to the spot. Then the Yodum moves like here, tries to take some shots. If I remember, the Karhu was also killing this guy. I killed like a few Kangshis and basically left my Yodam right around here, right? Then it's time for my opponent's turn, and what happens is that this Xian, the hero of the people. Oh, I recovered my Fusilier paramedic back from the dead with my paramedic. That was also quite important. But what ends up happening is, remember that the Yodam is located here, right? So this Xian tries to smoke shoot, tries fighting against the Jotun itself. It takes him 3 or 5 orders. He's basically shooting me at like on flats, and I'm shooting him back. And it takes 4 or 5 orders of smoke shooting the Yodum, and as you can see, Yodum just goes down like a bitch, basically. I can't really save. I save on freeze, right? So, yeah, I mean, cool, I guess. But the odds for this happening are quite awkward, like 6% chance to take wound. So I should take 0.11 wounds on order. I take 3 in 5 orders. So, okay. But fine, I basically spend my final turn. This Karhu moves up here. Oh, sorry, I meant this Karhu moves up here. Deletes the Xian with like 2 or 3 orders, and then the Palbot comes up here, heals the Yodam back from the dead. The Yodam moves up here. Hundun finally reveals himself, but is basically instantly deleted. Then I basically double move my Jodam to the enemy deployment zone, with the Jotun being here. Then I have this beacon, this beacon, this beacon, and the middle line with the Beast Hunter and the Yodom, and it's basically a 10-0. And if I remember correctly, my opponent, like there's the Hundun that's dead basically. And yeah, what if I remember correctly, my opponent only have like one Quangshi or like in the lieutenant of something like that. And I basically at this point in time didn't lose anything as I recovered both the Fusilier Paramedic and the Yodom, and the Sierra is back online. So yeah, really hope you enjoyed this quick game. And again, while the Yodom had some unlucky rolls with the armor saves, it still basically made the point of surviving the Yujing turn and basically being a big point sink to score the quadrant. And he scores both the quadrant and the middle line, so this Yodam is worth 5 or 6 objective points just by the virtue of him being super expensive. So thanks again for the report. I hope you enjoyed yourself, and yeah, I wish you a good day and hope you come back for more. Bye.